What I'm going to try to do today is to try and focus, that's what we divided amongst ourselves, to focus on the issue of Jewish philanthropy from North America, particularly the United States, and particularly Jewish philanthropy to Israel. And I want to talk about two concepts that have very much been brooded about in recent years. One is there distancing, particularly of young people, but is there distancing from Israel and what's its impact on philanthropy? And number two, this notion that has been talked about already today by several speakers, which is the notion of the collective. And I come after three presentations that come from the Keren HaYesod world, the president of Brandeis University. I think that in the world of Keren HaYesod, we see three examples here of three great communities which are maybe still part of what we may call the Shmurot Teva, the nature preserves of Jewish philanthropy. Communities in which there is a very high degree of correlation between the fact that you have very high day school attendance, you have very high involvement in the community, and you have very high degrees of collective philanthropy, people who are giving to the collective. And I think we have to ask ourselves, what is happening in that biggest part of world Jewry, which is the United States, with regard to these notions, the collective and philanthropy to Israel? And I want to share with you some of the data from a new piece of research that came out, actually, President Lawrence, from your institution, from the Cohen Center for Modern Jewish Studies, came out in April 2012, called The New Philanthropy, American Jewish Giving to Israeli Organizations. And before that, I want to talk about the philanthropic impulse. You know, all of us, when we took the basic courses in sociology, we learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the very bottom, if you remember, of the Maslow's pyramid is welfare, food, shelter. That's right at the very bottom. And right at the very top of Maslow's hierarchy is self-actualization. And I think that one of the truisms, as we look about philanthropy, is that the notion of noblesse oblige, I want to give to somebody who is less fortunate than I am. The traditional model was always noblesse oblige. I go to the lower levels of Maslow's hierarchy because that's the place where I can feel that I can immediately help the people who are less fortunate than I am. As we look around the Jewish world today, and as we think about the Jewish future as maybe the single biggest issue facing Jewish life in our times, we're looking at the upper levels of Maslow's hierarchy. And the question of what will it take to actually engage philanthropically world Jews around the issue of the Jewish future is, I think, one of the great philanthropic questions of our times. And we have some great success stories. Birthright is a great success story. I met this morning with Deborah Korba, I don't know if she's in the audience, the new exec of the Jewish Federation of Montreal. Montreal, Titzia Montgold, has just announced a $100 million campaign for the Jewish future. So that more and more we see that world Jewry are engaging with the upper levels of Maslow's hierarchy and are beginning to think about what will it take philanthropically to make sure there is a next generation of philanthropists. I want to say that the question of distancing, you know that in the study what they found was that there are now 774 organizations in the United States that raise money for Israel. In 1980, there were 265, in 2000, 436, in 2001, 774, 2011, 774. They are growing like Topsy. And these institutions are together raising for Israel over $2 billion at the time that this study was done. So that what we see is that we have a proliferation of organizations, particularly friends organizations, that are growing, while the collective, the role of philanthropy in sustaining community, John Woocher's famous book called Sacred Survival, in which he talked about philanthropy, the federation, the community, the campaign, as being the civil religion of American Jewry. While that continues to still be a major aspect of philanthropic life in America, more and more, as we heard from Ruben, as we heard from others, we find that donors are looking to dedicate their specific dollars to dedicated projects in Israel and are looking to be involved directly in an era in which a donor can go into the internet and take his credit card and deal through the internet with the tax issues and make a gift directly to an institution in Israel. The institutions that are intermediary institutions are going to have to show their added value. They're going to have to show, and I think as Mark is on to something very important, they're going to have to show that they have very low overheads. They're going to have to show the economy of scales. They're going to have to show the power of bringing together other funders and other communities and leveraging dollars so that an individual who is now looking for ROI and an individual who is looking for transparency and all the things that Reuven talked about will be able to get them through the major institutions of the collective without losing his ability or her ability to have a direct impact on the individual project. So that as the Jewish Agency peers into the future, it's absolutely clear to me that the future is going to have to be a combination of a whole lot of new modes of philanthropy. I think Mark is absolutely right. The government of Israel has slowly, through Birthright, through Massa, through other projects that they're already funding, the Israeli taxpayers taking more responsibility for world Jewry. And this is a way to bring more funders on board by saying, do a match with the Israeli government. It's critical that we're able to show that there are Israeli philanthropists who are more and more involved in philanthropy, because the new philanthropist is saying, why do you come to me if there are not philanthropists in Israel who are supporting these projects? And so we have to create new alliances in terms of the new directions of philanthropy. So I want to go back to those two big concepts. In terms of distancing, we see that philanthropic dollars from the United States to Israel are on the rise. More institutions, more friends institutions, total philanthropic dollars on the rise. The collective is having trouble holding its own. That notion of sacred survival, which was the way, the civil religion, Jewish philanthropy, which was the civil religion of creating community, is under attack. And these are the issues that I think that we're going to have to face as we look into the future. Thank you very much.